Today is the 50th day since demonetization. The Prime Minister said, give me 50 days, the situation will resolve. If not, I am prepared to face any punishment. Well, very clearly, the situation is far from being resolved, as our reporters found out in this ground report.
Prime Minister Modi had said by December 30th, the troubles caused to the common man by the demonetization drive would be over. 50 days on, the situation has improved to some extent, but it's still far from normal.
Situation has now completely changed, and here at this office of the SBI, there are 11 ATM machines, but at each and every ATM center machine you can hardly find one or two people lining up to withdraw money.
I think they should have prepared this type of money like 100 and 500. So now it is going to control.
The flip-flops after the demonetization has added to people's misery.
It seems like many ATMs are still not functional, and the amount we can retrieve is 2,000 rupees only. Very, very rarely you can get a 500 rupees note. For a person from a middle class, this is like one of the difficult periods he is facing right now. He has to come from Vyasarpadi, which is 7 kilometers, to find one ATM which is working. And not just that, even if the company he works for gives up money, it's very hard for him to retrieve it from an ATM. That is the situation present at Chennai for now.
எங்களை மாதிரி ஆளுங்களுக்கெல்லாம் ரொம்ப கஷ்டமாக தான் சார் இருக்குது. நடுத்தரமான இருக்கவங்க கஷ்டம்தான். ஒரு இடத்துல வேலை செய்கிறவங்களுக்கு பணம் வாங்கி பணம் போட்டு எடுக்கிறதெல்லாம் ரொம்ப கஷ்டமாக இருக்குது.
Across India, what's happened in these 50 days is the transformation from cash to a digital mode of payment.
नॉर्मल जैसे लाइन लगती है इतनी एटीएम पे नॉर्मल भी लाइन लगती है, इतने 15-20 दिन तो मिलते हैं और पैसे निकल रहे हैं और पहले से काफ़ी सुधार आया है.
But definitely, the queues have become shorter with the cash flow improving.
The guard who is deployed here, he said that the ATM machine is out of order at this point in time, even though the machine has cash in it. दादा ये बताइए कब से खराब पड़ा हुआ है ये मशीन?
तो हम सुबह में जब ड्यूटी में आए थे तो रुपया नहीं दे रहा था और बैलेंस जब चेक करने के बाद बैलेंस भी नहीं दे रहा.
तो कैश है इसके अंदर?
हाँ कैश है,
लेकिन मशीन खराब हो गया है.
मशीन मतलब कल खराब हुआ होगा, कहा कि हम तो सुबह में आए.
Things which were going not the way we wanted 1 month back, but things are normalized now. We don't have to stand in long queues, and I'm easily withdrawing cash.
50 days are almost over. The 30th December deadline is just approaching. We'll have to see how Modi has scored. For now, things are normal. Central part of Delhi, but a long way to go to learn the cashless way or online transaction. With camera person Rakesh, this is Parveena, Delhi, India Today.
Before I bring you other reports, we'll also look at data in terms of how much time it will take before the situation comes back to normalcy. Let me introduce you to the economists who are joining us on this India Today roundtable. Joining us is Rajiv Kumar. Also with us at this time is Ashok Lairi, a man who's been very closely involved in making budgets. With us also is Prasanjit Bose and Paranjoy Guatakurta. Welcome to all my guests. I want to go across to Rajiv Kumar first, because the Prime Minister, in the comments that he's been making, at least initially, set out a 50-day deadline for himself. Those 50 days are now getting over. Wherever we speak to people across the country, they somehow seem to believe that magically things will improve after the 30th of December. They're saying, we've given the Prime Minister the 50 days he asked for, after that things will get better. As a number cruncher, you know well, Rajiv Kumar, that the situation will not suddenly improve on the 30th of December. How big is this 30th December deadline going to be for the Prime Minister?
Well, clearly the 50-day deadline is, I don't think, is meant to say that things will become completely normal in the banking system. My hunch is that the difficulties that had been seen, as your report shows, they have now they've become much less. But the whole implementation could have been much better administered. That is very clear. And it was, I don't think the Prime Minister took into account that our banking system as well as our administrative system is not as good as it should have been, and it's not been, it's not implemented the task as well as it could. So I don't think the 30th December deadline will mean that things will become completely normal and that people will be able to withdraw money as they want. And I think it will take another 3 to 4 weeks before the complete
You're saying it
normalcy
will take
returns.
3 or 4 more weeks. You assume that normalcy will return by about the end of January. Prasenjit Bose, Rajiv Kumar also argues that the situation is much better now than it was immediately after this announcement, that the queues are shorter, the availability of cash is more. It may not be perfect, but anger isn't boiling over. By and by, we are trudging towards normalcy. Prasenjit Bose.
No, I am quite surprised by what Mr. Rajiv Kumar said, because I think that when the Prime Minister said 50 days, I think that the Prime Minister of our country, when he says 50 days, he should mean 50 days. If he doesn't mean 50 days when he says 30 days, then we have a lack of credibility. And this government started by saying 2 or 3 days, then said 3 weeks, and then came this 50-day deadline. The fact of the matter is that the decision makers at the highest levels of this government, today Mr. Rajiv Kumar is saying that he overestimated the strength of our financial system, or the service quality of our banks and so on. The point is that these aspects should have been factored in before taking this decision itself. That is the whole point of
Dr. Lahiri, that's an important point that Prasenjit Bose raises. He says 50-day deadline must mean a 50-day deadline full stop. It cannot be a flexible deadline, in which case that 50-day deadline that the Prime Minister said means nothing. When you take up a big mission, you should calculate all the possible variables and arrive at a deadline that you can be held accountable to. The Prime Minister said, if I'm not able to deliver in 50 days, hold me guilty. And therefore, Prasenjit argues he must be held to that promise.
I think Prasenjit has got a point. Suppose it was a military operation. Then if you say you're going to reach destination X at 2050, and 2050 means 2050. But in economic policy, you have a lot of optimism. You have optimism in policy making all the time. So if he puts this acid test, whether the restrictions on cash withdrawal continues or not, it does. But on the other hand, if you look at whether the situation has eased, it has. But if he sticks to his point, I have to agree with him. He said 50 days must be 50
Good
days,
counter. You're saying that
56.
economic policy is different from a military operation. If a military operation is said to end in 48 hours, if that's the deadline Paranjoy military commanders lay out, that's when it must end. Economic policy is determined by a whole host of factors, including optimism, people's belief, gut, sentiment. All of that cannot be calculated with the same level of precision. If the level of pain is coming down, if the queues are getting shorter, if cash is more readily available, that's good progress. Forget the 50-day deadline. The situation will normalize in the days to come. Paranjoy.
Rahul, I came on your program on the night of the 8th of November. It's been more than a month and a half since then, and I think there's no doubt in the minds of all but the most ardent Modi bhakts that this highly disruptive decision, as far as the economy, as far as the financial system is concerned, has hurt the most vulnerable sections of Indian society. It's led to loss of livelihoods, loss of jobs. It has led to loss of jobs among those who earn their wages on a daily basis, among farmers, especially farmers who grow perishable products. It's hurt elderly citizens. Some of them have died while waiting in queue to get their own hard-earned money. It has hurt women, who are the biggest savers. It's not going to achieve the objectives for which it was set off.
Okay, let Rajiv Kumar respond. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take it one at a time. You made a good point. Now, what Rajiv Kumar to respond to that? You, in your opening comment, said that the availability of cash is coming back slowly and steadily to a state which we can describe as normal. Paranjoy says that's the least of the problems. Look at the condition of landless laborers. Lots of these migrant workers having to come back to their villages from the cities because the cities couldn't pay them. Agricultural workers being hit. small scale sector industries being hit. He's saying those are problems which will take much longer to resolve, even if you're able to print new notes and put that currency back in the system.
Paranja is quite right in pointing out to the costs of this measure, and these costs have been substantial both in human terms and in economic terms, but and that cannot be denied. And all those costs that Paranja has enumerated have been there. It's not true, however, to say that these costs have been borne or have been suffered by the great majority of our people. Fortunately not, but many have suffered, and that's a fact. Also, there has been a net cost in terms of loss of economic activity, which many people were estimated to have been less than 1% or 1% of GDP, which let's say is 1.5 lakh crore. The question to ask, therefore, and which Paranja must answer and all of us must answer is that has this cost been worth it, or will this cost be worth it or not going forward? My own view, as I have written many times, is yes, there have been real costs to the economy and to the people of this country, but in draining the swamp of the corrupt and illegal income which we have accumulated over the last 7 decades, and giving the signal that we do want to change this whole cesspool, where those with illegal incomes have become the role models, and they strut about in our society with their completely ostentatious consumption and with lack of any punishment, with any fear of punishment. If that signal if this move has done that signal and is followed up by measures to control the flow of black money, then I feel assured that these costs have been worth it. If the body politics has developed a malignancy and a cancer, some medicine like a chemotherapy would have to be administered. And
I want to look at in very concrete terms, because I think the one question that everyone has in mind is by when will normalcy return? And before I put this question to our panelists, I want to take you through data that's been compiled by an engineer by the name of James Wilson. He's looked very carefully at data that's available in the public domain on RBI websites, looked at the capacity of the 4 major printing presses in our country to put out 3 scenarios according to which the situation could start coming back to normal. In scenario 1, if the presses in Mysuru and Salboni work on a 3-shift basis, usually they work on 2-shift basis, but we're assuming that because of the crisis they will work on a 3-shift basis, and Nashik and Devas work at full capacity, then in this scenario normalcy will require 188 days. To print 88.82 million notes would require 188 days, which means that this could be till about the middle of June 2017. This is scenario number 1. Let's now come to scenario number 2. Scenario number 2 assumes that the Mysuru and Salboni press will work at the capacity of 3 shifts per day. The Nashik press prints at full capacity. In such a scenario, the estimate is that 81.64 million notes will be printed per day, and this will require 204 days. So the situation will revert to normalcy by about the 2nd of July 2017. Let's now come to the third and final scenario, which says that the Mysuru and Salboni presses work at 2 shifts per day. In this, the Nasik press prints at full capacity. In such a scenario, 59.73 million notes will be printed a day. The overall currency will require 280 days, which means that if you look at all the notes in circulation to bring them back, would take till about the 16th of September 2017. So mid-June is the earliest estimate by which all the currency would come back. But you can argue that because people are heading towards the digital payments, you don't need the same level of currency that you had earlier. You can counter argue though that digital payments are still a small speck in the overall Indian Ocean. I want to go across first and foremost to Ashok Lahiri. We've seen the estimates put out by the number crunchers. What's your own estimate, Professor Lahiri, as an economist? By when do you think normalcy will return?
I think by normalcy, it depends on what you define as normalcy. You see, the deposits in your bank are always freely convertible into currency at par without any restrictions. So the fact that there are restrictions of this kind, like 24,000 per week and 2,500 from ATMs, these restrictions will be relaxed. But will they be, can you go and withdraw as much as you like from the bank fairly soon? I don't think so. So it will take another 3-4 months for complete normalcy.
So you are saying by about March, April, you believe that normalcy could return. Paranjoy, but when do you think normalcy will return, and also how would you define normalcy?
You know, I don't think it's going to be normal in the foreseeable future, certainly for the next 50 days. But I want to add 2 points. Mr. Rajiv Kumar talked about draining the swamp. You know, that analogy can be extended. Those crocodiles and alligators are still surviving, but the fish on which the alligators survived have died. 2 points. One is that a very, very small proportion of the total black money in circulation in the system is held in the form of cash. You've now had new forms of corruption. You've had new forms of malfeasance. And was the price really worth paying?
No, so I'm coming to that. So Paranjoy, let's take it one at a time, and I'd like you to respond to the question that I asked you. My question this time is, how soon do you believe normalcy would return?
I don't think it's going to happen in a hurry. I mean, we'll be lucky if it becomes normal in the next few months. I mean, I can't put a date onto it because India's probably now going to import currency notes from the rest of the world. So, I mean, I can't really predict.
Okay, Rajiv Kumar,
it's certainly not normal.
Do you have your estimate? We've seen one number cruncher say at least it'll take till about July for the notes that have been taken out of currency to be out of circulation to be put back into circulation. By when do you believe normalcy could return, Rajiv Kumar?
Well, that will depend upon whether or not, as Paranjoy said, the government decides to import currency from other foreign presses or not. And I personally don't see any harm in doing so if we do want to replenish the entire stock of currency in our economy. But the second point is that we have to convince the people that there is no fear of scarcity, because at the moment there is a tendency to hoard currency. And if that assurance is given,
do you have a tangible timeline that you'd like to put out for our viewers? By when do you believe, Rajiv Kumar, that normalcy would return, that life would be the way it was before the demonetization surgical strike?
Oh, I would think that, as I said, that by the end of certainly by the end of March, things will be normal, and by the end of January, you will find that there is no distress and there is no further human cost to be borne.
Prasenjit Bose, would you agree that by about the end of January, the misery would be going away, and by the end of March, life would be normal?
See, first of all, Rahul, I think that by normalcy, what we should universally accept is that all these withdrawal limits should go. Unless and until that happens, you can't call the situation to be normal. And for that to happen, I think that your number crunchers are, their arithmetic is quite sound, but the assumption of the distribution of the different denomination, I mean, how many 2,000, how many 500 is missing. It's not there, at least you have not stated it. But I would say that, going by simple arithmetic calculations, it should take at least another 2 or 3 months. And I think everybody in the panel agrees that the Prime Minister's deadline was a mistake. Now, the moot point is that your number cruncher is doing a simple arithmetic. This arithmetic should have been done by the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister or the RBI or somebody who knows arithmetic in this damn government before demonetizing 86% of currency notes. And the fact that it has not been done, and now you are going on and on about saying, 50 days.
When do you see normalcy return?
Now you are saying more months to come. What kind of a government are we having?
When do you see normalcy return, Prasenjit?
Policy?
Do you have a timeline in mind?
Mr. Rajiv Kumar is talking about costs and benefits. Now all these are, his claims. What about, why are we not getting the data from the Reserve Bank of India?
Prasenjit Bose, by when do you see normalcy return? One second, turn that filter down. Prasenjit, respond to the question that I'm asking you. We will come to the points that you're making later. I'm asking you this question, when do you see normalcy return?
First of all, accept that the situation is normal. When the withdrawal limits of 2,500 and 24,000 and all these limits, whose constitutionality and legality are very dubious, these limits should go. And I don't see that going before another at least 1.5 months, at least, maybe more, maybe 2 months.
Okay, I want to come now to the third question we're asking on this Economists roundtable, and this really deals with what pain relief measures can the Prime Minister announce. Remember, the big 2nd of January speech in Lucknow is supposed to be a game changer for the BJP, the Prime Minister and all the people around him saying, the people of India have borne pain, there will be some gain at the end of it all. What can the Prime Minister announce? What kind of relief measures are we possibly looking at? Let me put that question first and foremost to Ashok Lahiri.
Rahul, that is the crux of the matter. As Poranjoy pointed out, the pain is palpable. You see, money is one of the fantastic inventions. Paper money is the fantastic invention of human beings. It's not a natural thing. And we know how dangerous it is to play with it. The Great Depression in the US, if you have a contraction of money supply, there is pain, and cash has been contracted. Now, I find it remarkable that this has started as a great campaign against corruption. But mind you, this has happened before also. In 1946 and 1978, the finance minister said the same thing, that they're going to root out corruption. Now, here people have put some trust in Mr. Modi. It's a political gamble because he has to deliver. Because after the pain, now people will say, where is the gain? I will tell you what the gain can come from. One, this cash withdrawal restriction. Suppose I have some Benami money, some black money. I give it to you and you deposit in your account. If you can withdraw it and give it to me, then the trail is gone. But the money is sitting in your account. FIU knows about it. Now the question is, will the government go after what Poranjoy said, the crocodiles, and catch them? Second, you have the Benami Transactions Act, which is not only for immovable property. Suppose I have some black money and I use it for buying some property or some shares. That can be traced. The question is, what will happen? Unfortunately, what will happen is that this gains will not come overnight. But people, I think, are going to give Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister, some time and see how he is proceeding with it. So the pain relief will come not from the immediate withdrawal of the cash limits, but from the fact that we'll read in newspaper that this guy has been caught.
Okay, you're saying it's not so much a policy measure announced by the Prime Minister, but the action taken by various law enforcement agencies in going after the crooks, the crocodiles. Rajiv Kumar, the 2nd of January, a big date for the Prime Minister, for the BJP. What could Narendra Modi announce? What could be the big pain relief measures?
One of the measures I think, Rahul, could be to announce a reduction in the lending rate by commercial banks, which is because that they have this huge amount of liquidity, with them. That liquidity will surely get out back into the system as money is withdrawn. But certainly for the foreseeable future, the commercial banks are sitting with a huge amount of excess liquidity, which can enable them to lower the lending rates by maybe 100 or 150 basis points.
Okay.
And the Prime Minister could announce that the public sector banks are going to do that, and so that the housing EMIs and the purchase of consumer durables, etc., become better for the common person. The second thing that he could announce as a pain relief measure would be a huge affordable housing program, to which the government can give a very large resource allocation, because it will have a slightly greater fiscal space with this measure. And this affordable workers housing program would then create and generate the employment that may have been lost during these last 2 months, and in any case which needs to be generated, because that is the crux of the economic problem facing the country. Those are the two measures that I think can happen. The
So
third,
you're saying,
of course, will be measures to go against those who have been caught and identified, the crocodiles that Paranjay mentioned. The third will be a set of measures to capture the crocodiles and bring their illegal incomes.
Okay,
into
very
the tax
interesting.
net
Interesting
through
point. So
different routes.
housing,
So those are the three measures that I
affordable
think
housing, you're saying lowering interest rates sharply and also going after the crocodiles. Roundtable, before we go any further, let me bring you the big political move today. The government passed an ordinance which said that all 500 and 1,000 rupee notes in old currency after the 30th of December will be illegal. Anybody found with a whole bunch of these notes could be sent to prison for more than 4 years. Here's the story.
मोदी जी की पॉलिसीज लोगों के दिल में भयंकर डर पैदा कर रही हैं। डिमोनेटाइजेशन इसका एक उदाहरण है।
जनता को श्रीमान राहुल गांधी गुमराह करने की कोशिश मत करिए। आपकी बौखलाहट समझ में आती है।
50 days since the note ban and the verbal duel continues. Politics over demonetization refuses to die down. Accusing Prime Minister Modi of instilling fear among the masses, Rahul Gandhi stated a clear demand: waive off the withdrawal limit.
मोदी जी की पॉलिसीज लोगों के दिल में भयंकर डर पैदा कर रही हैं। डिमोनेटाइजेशन इसका एक उदाहरण है।
जो पैसा नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने बैंक्स में डलवाया है वो हिंदुस्तान के लोगों का पैसा है, वो हिंदुस्तान की सरकार का पैसा नहीं है, बैंक्स का पैसा नहीं है।
The attacks came as the cabinet cleared promulgation of an ordinance to penalize persons holding scrapped ₹500 and 1,000 notes.
As per the ordinance passed by Union Cabinet, if you are found in possession of old notes after 31st March 2017, you may end up in jail for 4 years along with a penalty of 5,000 rupees.
They had no option. Otherwise, whatever step that the Prime Minister took in the so-called demonetization of the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes is illegal.
When the bill comes, we'll detail study and we'll take a decision.
RJD Chief Lalu Prasad Yadav demanded an answer from the Prime Minister as the 30th December deadline nears.
50 दिन हमको दीजिए, हम देश को एकदम पटरी पर ला देंगे, एकदम मालूमाल कर देंगे, और ये क्या निकला आप बेवरा दें।
This came a day after Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi and West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee demanded Prime Minister's resignation, irking an equally scathing response from the BJP.
अब तो VIP चौपर स्कैम में जांच राहुल गांधी जी आपके घर के दरवाजे पर पहुंच गई है और जवाबदेही आपकी बनती है।
Meanwhile, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu, who is heading the Committee of Chief Ministers to promote digital economy, admitted to demonetization lapses.
Temporary, there is a problem. I also felt very bad. Now situation slowly is easing out, but this is not sufficient.
As politics intensifies, depositors now have time till December 30th to deposit the holdings in their accounts. The big takeaway from the 50th day of cash chaos is that holding old notes may now land you in jail. With Brijesh Pandey in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, so let's now come back to the India Today Economists Roundtable. We've got Rajiv Kumar joining us on this broadcast, Ashok Lahiri, Prasanjit Bose, and also with us on this broadcast is Paranjay Guatakurta. I want to go across first and foremost to Ashok Lahiri. What do you believe, sir, will be the definition to decide whether or not demonetization has been a success? What's the tangible target? By when will we know whether all the effort that's been made has actually been worth it?
Rahul, there are two things that I must say. One, the politics of it, the other, the economics. Now, one of the foremost sophologists of India, Yogendra Jadhav, now turned political leader, he made a statement I read in newspapers. It's a very politically very astute move but he doesn't know whether economically it will work or not. We'll know the result, the popular feedback from UP election results. Now let me come to the economics of it. So economics, if I have to put a short-term barometer, in 1946, 6% of the currency in circulation did not come back. In 1978, 11% didn't come back. Now, by my calculation, we still don't have the numbers from the RBI. About 15 lakh crore worth of 500 and 1,000 rupee notes were sloshing around, were in circulation on 8th of November. So you take 15% of it, which is about 2 lakh crore, shouldn't be coming back. Now let me add another thing. What do I do with my 500 and 1,000 rupee notes? Suppose I have some black money. I hope you're not taking it seriously that I have some black money. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been saying it on TV like this.
Good.
Now, either I can burn them or I can find some conduit by which I deposit in a bank. Because if I don't deposit in a bank, it's just worthless. So it's possible that much of it will come back. But since you cannot withdraw it, it will be lying around in a bank. And with the Second Amendment to the Finance Act, you can see how much the government will be able to catch.
Okay, so you're saying
deposits.
2 lakh crores should not come back into the account, which means 13.5 lakh crores is all that should come back. Only then can demonetization be called a success. You're also saying that the UP elections would be another popular barometer. Now, Paranjoy, you know, ultimately who decides whether a move is successful or not? Naysayers will say what they will. Ultimately, if the BJP wins in Uttar Pradesh, can the Prime Minister and the BJP claim that demonetization was a success, regardless of what the Cassandras were saying?
Look, Rahul, only time will tell. We will know what the outcome of the results in Uttar Pradesh will be. We will know 2.5 years later what happens in the next general elections. But in the meantime, look at the damage that has been done. You've not only destroyed livelihoods, you've not only made, you've not only like completely disrupted and destroyed the lives of large sections, the most vulnerable sections of your population. Look at the damage you've done to the credibility of the Reserve Bank of India, the country's apex monetary authority, the central bank. In the last, less than 50 days, the Reserve Bank of India has changed the rules about 65 or 66 times. I don't know how many times. Sometimes those rules have been changed within 24 hours. Never in any part of the world, at a time when there's no hyperinflation, there's no war, that there is no extraordinary situation, has the government done such a disruptive and disastrous move. And what is worse is that it will not end up achieving the objectives for which it was set up, whether it be counterfeit notes which are being used by terrorists, whether it be black money holders, and now you are talking about the cashless economy. On the 8th of November when I appeared on your program, I said India is not going to become cashless in a hurry. I mean, look at what will happen in the interregnum, and that, in my opinion, has been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
Rajiv Kumar, how would you determine whether or not demonetization has been a success? What would be the tangible benchmark at which this policy should really be measured?
This policy should be measured, according to me, in 3 ways. The first one, as Ashok said, was political, and the fact that if the UP elections, the results of the UP elections will tell us whether the common persons have seen this to be a success. But I want to add one other thing, which is that if the UP elections are fought on a development agenda, whether it is, as Akhilesh Yadav said, that demonetization could become the demonetization could be used as a referendum in the UP elections, for me that would be a very good thing, because otherwise the danger was that these would have been fought on communal and casteist lines, which would have seen my state go up in flames. So that's the first criteria, that if the UP elections are held peacefully and the referendum there will show whether this policy is a success. The second one is that there is approximately, if you estimate the parallel economy in this country to be about 60 lakh crore, 40% of the GDP, then at any one point of time there would be a 6 lakh crore stock of black currency floating around to lubricate that economy. Of that, if we can capture 2 to 3 lakhs in the banking system and further on in the tax system, then I think demonetization would have been a success. And the third measure that I would result is that if in the next 1 year you see the tax base increasing, the direct tax base increasing from the measly 35 million to a much larger number, which I think would happen because of the moves, because of the impact of this measure, then I think the demonetization would have been a success. So and the fact that Paranjoy keeps repeating the disastrous results, etc., etc., my fear is, my plea to him is that those who he thinks have been most badly affected are for some reason still supporting the measure. Now, so I'm not sure whether all this pain that Paranjoy is talking about is actually visible or felt by the people whom he is so
that's an interesting dichotomy you point out.
But
that's a very good point, because I'm also out of time, so I want final comments from my panelists. Paranjoy, Rajiv Kumar makes a very important point. In district after district in Uttar Pradesh and Punjab, where we've been speaking to people, people tell us that there is pain, but they believe that demonetization is in the larger, longer term interests of this country. They still have faith in the Prime Minister, which is why there's been no riot, there's been no violence. People have been painfully but peacefully accepting whatever has happened. Does that not show that they believe that demonetization is in their best interest?
I'm not so sure at all. There have been large numbers of incidents that have taken place across the country. Farmers have put their produce out on the streets. I'm sorry, there have been people out on the streets. I'm not so sure. And I want to respond to Rajiv. Sometimes we should beware the patient, beware the fury of a patient man, a patient woman. In the mid-70s, when Indira Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi talked about, sterilization and Nasbandi, a lot of people supported the emergency. The Communist Party of India supported the emergency. But then, some months down the line, when it became forced sterilization, we know what happened in March 1977. What I'm saying is, here you have put ordinary citizens, ordinary women, elderly people into great misery.
If Kumar, final words from you.
Their own money.
Paranjoy says, just because they are patient doesn't mean they're happy. Beware the fury of the patient man.
Rahul, why are we talking about the patient, the fury of the patient man? Somewhere or the other, the fury would have been expressed as it has been done in the emergency. And the fact that farmers have put out their crops is an incident that you see year after year after year in perishable crops. No, the point, Rahul, is that those who have been standing in the queues think very clearly that this is a measure in the larger interest of the country. And I am afraid Paranjoy may have to get very disappointed, because the people will not break out into fury.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. You've heard from the believers, you've heard from the naysayers. The jury is still out. We have a big demonetization scoop tomorrow at 8 p.m. That's all I can tell you just now. Can't give out more, but it will be worth your while to tune in between 8 and 11 p.m. tomorrow as we track the end of this 50-day deadline. To my guests for joining me on the newsroom tonight, thank you very much.